Luigi's Mansion is a trilogy of games that the fan base is split on many ends of the spectrum. All three games are fun to play in their own right. You won't find any true Luigi's Mansion fans saying that they didn't enjoy all three of the games. Sadly enough, the vast majority of fans will criticize one game over the other due to certain reasons. This is very apparent in the original game fans, as well as Dark Moon fans. Where do I stand inside the fans? This is my review of all three Luigi's Mansion games simultaneously. All the footage that you will be seeing is from all of my live streams I have done for the three games. I have live streamed all three Luigi's Mansion games, and I plan on sharing the playlist in the description below. Please check them out. Also, check out my Luigi's Mansion Dark Moon No Upgrade Run guide video. That one took a long time to edit. I want to let other people know that about how you can actually make Luigi's Mansion Dark Moon a bit harder. It would also be linked in the description below. I'm also in progress of working on a Luigi's Mansion 3 Slamless Run guide video, but that's kind of in the progress at the moment. Now that I've gone over the intro, let's get down to the categories I have. Fair note that I've actually separated certain categories into each other because I want to see if my opinions for one over the other will be different. For example, I've given King Boo 3 different categories, which is based on his character himself, character personality, boss battles, and in music. Since the original game actually lacks multiplayer, I've decided to toss the 3DS remake of the Luigi's Mansion onto the original. So basically, Luigi's Mansion for the 3DS has a sort of a slight advantage. I'm not counting it for all categories in particular, but just for the multiplayer aspects of the game. For the two multiplayer categories, it'll just mostly being gameplay and bosses. It'll just have a chance to stand out. That being said, let's go down to the 20 categories. Story, or based on the main plot of the game. Gameplay, the controls mostly. Enemy ghosts, which is the bulk of the ghosts that you'll deal with in the main game. Mini bosses, ghosts that are unique in their battles and just stand out as like a just tougher opponent in comparison to the actual battles. Actual enemies, boss ghosts, which are basically just, the big bosses you have to face off against throughout the game. I'm actually excluding the big Boolossous and King Boo in particular because, well, King Boo, final boss, obviously, and then for Boolossous, since he's one of those recurring bosses, I have sort of a special category for him. We have Boolossous fight, and then Boolossous music, which is how I feel fighting him, and also how his music is. Professor Egad as a character in a whole. Then we have multiplayer gameplay, which is basically, in a sense, for Dark Moon and Luigi's Mansion 3, the Scarescraper. I have not done the ScreamPark. I haven't really had a real chance to get friends that can do ScreamPark with me, so I'm actually going to just include that in particular. But I'm only going to talk about the Scarescraper, and with the original, just playing through the co-op story mode, and then multiplayer bosses, which is basically who you fight in the game, in particular. Then we have King Boo, and I've mentioned the 3 King Boos: character, boss battle, and then music. And then basically reward for being in the game normally, which is basically sort of the OG, complete game completion. Then basically how you beat the game for 100%, which is basically the completionist goal. Then we have the Mario ending, sort of ending in a sense, which is basically how Mario is portrayed in the game as a whole. Basically, all of how Mario is portrayed in the brains. Then we have the Boos, which is basically kind of the main thing that actually Luigi has to try to capture, which is usually how they're actually portrayed in the games. The background music, usually just how I feel listening to the music as a whole. A lot of the music is actually pretty catchy, but which game has the best, soundtrack? Yeah, you'll find out near later on the video. And then we have, now I originally had graphics, but I actually kind of had trouble figuring out how to actually kind of explain which graphics I would prefer best. So I decided to compare the game in particular to other games that I've actually played that came out that year, and in which one I found was kind of had the most potential. Which one I felt, or the most amount of games actually I've played for that year. So that's my personal opinion of that. And then for the original game, since Luigi's Mansion for the original console kind of came out at the end of near the end of the 2001 year, because of that's when the GameCube kind of released near the end of the year, as well actually was a launch title. I added 2002 for it, for any other games that actually came out, to give it actually a nice little fair kind of chance. And then finally, the final category is actually replayability, is how I feel about playing the games itself. Now that we've gone through all 20 categories, let's get down to the list. Fair warning though, this is all entirely my opinion. If you're one of those people who seem to actually find yourselves getting upset when someone else's opinion is not the same as yours, then please click off this video now. I don't know how triggered you might get, or upset you might get if my opinion is differing than yours. But I just want to warn you that having not being able to kind of respect the opinion of someone else is not really a good thing actually to have. Thank you very much for this intro, and let's get started with the list. Or the rankings. Let's just go into the categories. Blech. Story. To start this off, the stories for all three games are simple. The first game's story is Luigi went to mansion he never entered. Dark Moon has Egad studying passive ghosts in a new area when the ghosts suddenly go hostile. Luigi's Mansion 3 is Luigi is invited to a hotel with all of his friends. To understand my stance on the stories, you have to understand where I feel like the stories lacked and which was the absolute best. In third place for this category is the original game. For those original Luigi's Mansion elitists who seem to get triggered whenever someone doesn't put the original above the other two games, let me explain my stance. First off, the idea that Luigi wins a mansion in a contest he didn't enter is something I don't really find interesting, especially since he never entered the contest. Now, that's the main gimmick of the story, but there's also a lack of stakes involved. Yeah, Mario's kidnapped, but that also means if Luigi would have left Mario to stay trapped, he could have been player one for quite a while. And also, I think if anything, there's probably a different story involved with, Luigi, with basically Luigi and Mario, and even King Boo and Egad as a whole. But I do feel like, this game is just the first original Mansion game is just the first act of the story instead of it being, just a simple game as a whole. Second place is Luigi's Mansion 3. The story of this game is actually pretty much similar to the first game, which is probably my only reason why I'm probably not really giving it a high of a praise for the story, but it is definitely better than the original because unlike the first one where Luigi wins the mansion, Luigi is invited to the hotel. And in this case, it actually feigns the whole, creepy atmosphere, where this time around, instead of Luigi winning a haunted mansion, Luigi is invited to a nice, luxurious hotel, only for it to suddenly become a creepy haunted hotel, where he's basically trapped with a bunch of ghosts, which is basically when all of his friends are also captured by King Boo and Helen, and he's also then trapped in the hotel, so his only way of escape is in fact basically, his only way of escaping is actually getting to the top and rescuing all of his friends. Stakes are higher because also, besides having to rescue his brother, he has to rescue the princess and some toads. Although he could probably leave some of the toads captured because there's so many, not rescuing his brother or even the princess could actually lead for some problems in the future with future games. Especially for someone like, say, Bowser, who has to kidnap the princess. If he doesn't have a peach, he's in trouble. But the first place is obviously going to be Dark Moon. Dark Moon's story entails actually with Egad actually basically studying the passive ghost in the Evershade Valley. King Boo shatters the Dark Moon, and basically an entire fog envelops the land with all the ghosts suddenly just going crazy. Egad is forced to escape into his bunker and calls Luigi for help. Throughout the game, Luigi and Egad are working together to capture the ghosts in the Evershade Valley, while also trying to find out who the culprit is. Even though basically everyone who's actually playing the game already knows the culprit, but for the sake of the characters, they don't know for sure who the culprit is. But basic with the game itself starts, and the game starts increased in the stakes because when the ghosts have a chance to basically escape the valley, it could actually cause, you know, like just all around chaos. With even King Boo basically kind of trying to build himself an army. But even one of the hardest missions in the game, Paranormal Chaos, actually has literally ghosts actually coming out of a portal and almost destroying the fabric of reality. But to finish this up a little bit, last place is the original game, second place is Luigi Mansion 3, and then first place is basically Dark Moon. Now, I have said before I'm doing like sort of a point scale, but when you find out the results, I won't reveal the results of the point score till the very end. But if a game gets last place, they're gonna get 1 point. Game gets second place, get 2 points, and first place is basically 3 points. But Dark Moon is by far the best game in terms of story. Alone. Gameplay. This one is kind of hard to say, as it has to be which controller was the most comfortable for you to play. But all three games actually had some solid and fun gameplay. However, if I really had to choose the worst in my honest opinion, I'd have to go with the original game. Capturing ghosts in the original was a bit of a struggle for me. The elemental abilities are handy, but I do feel like actually it would have been much better if there was a way you at least could have probably swapped while you were using them or something like that, and you only had to go to certain spots just to restore the energy for the elemental abilities instead. But other than that, I mean, who knows? Who knows how it probably would have worked. Someone wants to comment down below how maybe like having it an option to actually have like sort of like filler ups for the elemental abilities and having them all like with you at all times would have worked. I don't know. I'm kind of curious about that. I don't know. Who knows? Second place is Luigi's Mansion 3. I'm gonna admit and say that the third game actually has far better gameplay than the original. I do actually like how you can actually slam ghosts. That literally, like actually slamming ghosts is almost like just a fun time. It also gives you like a way to actually kind of take down hordes of ghosts yourself. However, it does also mean that the game gets to be really, really easy, as slamming ghosts just ends up being like the main sort of, you know, gimmick. It's possible, you know, like, if anything, like, if you actually were to play, since I did this run of like Luigi's Mansion 3 without slamming ghosts, it does actually make the game slightly harder, because now you basically have to force to deal with all the ghosts either one at a time or a few at a time, because now you can't really gain the money you get from those ghosts. But also, the other build that actually Luigi Mansion 3 brings to the table is also the Dark Light device, which is I'll mention in Dark Moon in a bit. But it has unlimited battery life, and I really did not like that. I didn't like how actually it made the Dark Light was basically just sort of a easy, just you could literally just hold it out at all times. It didn't even matter. It actually makes a certain fight pretty much, you know, pointless entirely, because like you can literally just hold it out and then just wait until it spawns, and then, well, I'll mention the Dark Light device in more detail when we get to the specific mini boss and specific enemies in particular, which will be really late in the video. Then finally, you have the Burst ability, which is actually a pretty fun ability to actually use. I will admit, I do actually like being able to kind of, you know, burst, or at least, you know, go around and start sucking up ghosts with ease. It is a lot of fun. I mean, like, it's just a lot of, I just do like playing with the whole, like, you know, bursting if I need to actually get ghosts away, or even just slamming, or even just fooling around with the left and right shoulder buttons in particular. First place is Luigi's Mansion Dark Moon. Moving around is clean, and I do love actually you're actually kind of charged to lower the health of the ghost easier. You also have a limit only holding 3 ghosts at a time, which I feel is definitely a nice balance. The Dark Light device has basically a limit to how long you actually can use it, and also kind of forces a bit of a strategy, so you can't really hold it out or wield it, all willy-nilly. The motion controls of Dark Moon is definitely something to kind of be used to, but it is not for quite a bit of for certain people it is definitely a problem for them, and I can definitely understand that. But even for me, I always found like it actually kind of adds sort of the immersion to the game as a whole. Like that's something I think I've always found like it kind of lacked for the third game, was that in the third Luigi's Mansion game, there are times actually where like you're literally off the edge, hanging on the edge of the building, and instead of it feeling like you're actually going there, it doesn't really feel like actually you're much like hanging off the edge. Instead, you're just moving the control stick forward and backward instead of just like moving it. In Dark Moon, when you were climbing across, the beams, or even actually like the beams, or even actually the entrance to the treacherous mansion, it felt like you were literally like hanging or balancing on like treacherous ground, and it actually forced you to actually move, to actually kind of like keep yourself balanced. Because otherwise, if you fell, you lost health. There's always a sense of like tension on those points, which I liked. And then basically we mentioned the ice boss because of bosses. But to sum it up, the original game has the worst gameplay. Luigi's Mansion 3 has alright gameplay, and probably even better if the Dark Light device was entirely different. And in first place is Dark Moon. And that's because actually the motion controls actually kind of gave a bit of immersion to the game as a whole. Enemy ghosts, or basically the majority of ghosts that we fight in the main game. In last place is the enemy ghost from the first game. This game does have the most varied kind of ghosts in the entire series, but I've honestly never really cared for them. Well, save for the ones that really have made other appearances in spin-offs. Like for example, Mario Power Tennis has the Luigi's Mansion stage, which is one of my personal favorites in terms of in the game as a whole. Has the gold ghosts, purple punchers, blue twirlers, and the garbage can ghosts. Those are probably the only ones I really kind of say that really stand out to me, while the vast majority of them really are just forgettable as a whole. That's also kind of because, I really enjoyed Mario Power Tennis as a game entirely, but the rest of them were just, eh. I mean, if you actually have a favorite original game enemy ghost from the first game, comment down below and tell me which one actually is your favorite. I'm actually kind of curious. Second place goes to Luigi's Mansion 3. Unlike the first game, which had a large variety of ghosts, most of which can get to be pretty much forgettable, in my honest opinion, the third game has basically only 5 unique ghosts that spell a single word, and that is actually pretty clever. However, I wish I also would have had a little bit of a harder version of each ghost instead of just downright just setting them all, having you like summon like. Just have like hordes of them actually attack you. Because even then, like, it gets to be like pretty easy to be able to fight like the same goobs and slammers, even and slinkers and oozers over and over again. I mean, if anything, they could have at least had like say strong variants of them, or even more so for each of the floors. Like have their HPs like increment in quite a bit. Like maybe the goos, for example, like in the higher up floors, maybe after you rescued, say, one of the toads, the goop's HP would be, instead of being 100, would be 150. Maybe increment by like 50, something like that. Maybe add some sort of difficulty. But that's nothing I can really kind of deal with. But even more so is like even the boss ghosts in comparison have similar HP amounts than like the most basic of the enemies. But first place actually gets to be Dark Moon again. Now, surprisingly enough, for those that have not actually really left the video yet because they see Dark Moon's winning so far 3 times in a row, here's why I really find Dark Moon has the best enemy ghosts in the game. The basic enemies in the game are the Greenie, Slammer, Hider, Sneaker, Gobber, and Creeper, as well as also having strong variants to all the other ghosts, basically bar the Creepers and even the Polterpup, which basically are given the sense that these ghosts are also giving you trouble. Heck, the Greenies are also able to wield weapons, have different strategies to defeat them like their Mummy Knight Armor, and even have shields as early as the third mansion. Sadly, none of the other ghosts have a shield, but the Slammer can actually have a shield depending on under certain circumstances, which when we get to the whole multiplayer bosses, that's when I'll actually kind of explain more in detail with them. But last place has to go with the original game for edible ghosts. Second place goes to the third game because all the ghosts are just pretty much just eh. And the first place goes to Dark Moon ghosts, not only due to their personality, but also because like they just feel like they always progress with you and get stronger each time you fight them. Now for the mini bosses. Mini bosses in the original game are going to represent all the portrait ghosts, only excluding the ones that give out the boss keys. In Dark Moon, it is usually going to be the boss battle that usually appears in the middle of the mission structure, and usually is a way to make the player deal with a ghost that isn't the main boss of each area. While the third game doesn't have much to show for mid-bosses category, I'd go with actually battles that aren't really a main floor boss. In this case, that would be Polterkitty. I mean, if I kind of wanted to, I could also probably count the first two floor bosses as like sort of mid-bosses, but since they really technically count as actually a floor boss and actually hold an just they're on as actual bosses, I'm gonna just leave those off to the side. In this case, Polterkitty would actually count as a mid-boss, because you do actually fight her twice. Well, yeah, twice. In third place, I'm gonna have to go with the original game. Going back to the story element, basically all the portrait ghosts that you have to capture are all just living their own lives after being actually trapped by Egad in his paintings. The fact that actually literally all of them aren't even trying to actually, cause you harm at all, and just trying to live their life doesn't make me feel good actually, capturing them. Only specific ghosts actually do try to attack you. Those are actually really the boss ghosts. Rather than that, all of them really could just be fine actually just like living in the mansion just in peacefully. In second place is Luigi's Mansion 3. Due to how there aren't really many mini-bosses in the game, really safe for Polterkitty, I'd honestly find Polterkitty far more interesting of a mini-boss than every single one of the portrait ghosts in the first game. Well, first of all, Polterkitty actually is in fact the boss, is actually, well, in fact, the cat of Helen Gravely, who's actually our main villain alongside King Boo in Luigi's Mansion 3. Your main goal, Polterkitty actually appears twice, actually halting your progress by forcing you actually to chase after it, try to basically, realize the elevator button that actually she stole from it. It is kind of, annoying sometimes, and Polterkitty is not really a fun boss to actually deal with, but it is actually something to kind of deal with. In first place, I have to go actually with Dark Moon. Dark Moon actually has many bosses. From the poltergeists in the first mansion, third mansion, and the last mansion, to the three sisters in the haunted towers, to then actually the strong ghost trio of the secret mine, and then even actually also Polterpup in his 3 different appearances as a mini boss. All 3 poltergeists have nice appearances, nice gimmicks where they should be invisible, and also how like as a whole they just have like that nice essence of a strong ghost. The 3 sisters have the whole gimmick of being actually circling around you if to try to capture them, but also avoid the other ones. That's also why I like also the ability with Luigi's gameplay in the Dark Moon is literally the way to avoid the ghosts. You have to jump to actually avoid them. That is actually a really good feature I like. Polterpup actually, his missions are all basically chase-based missions, and even actually capturing him 3 times actually is a nice reward, because once he does escape, you realize, oh wait a minute, shoot, so I have to capture him again. And then once you get a chance to finally capture him, it's like, yes, we finally got him. It's also nice to see how, and also Polterpup's actually a really crucial character later on. And then we have finally after that the strong chain ghosts, which actually, in a sense, block our path to find out where they go to the to the next area for the fourth boss, for the ice boss. But even then, like, these battles are like they're definitely really intense. I do actually enjoy them. I will say the GameCube mini bosses have a unique gimmick, but none of them really felt like really a mini boss. It only felt like I was just like torturing them, because they just rather live in peace. In third place is Luigi's Mansion. The portrait ghosts do not really feel like mini bosses at all. In second place is Luigi's Mansion 3, and Polterkitty is a really fun mini boss, but it can be also really frustrating. In first place goes to Dark Moon's mini bosses, where all of them are just a lot of fun to deal with. And even when you actually replay a mission again, they all actually feel still like fresh bosses as a whole. The main bosses of the game. This is the 3 bosses that give a unique boss key in the original game, excluding Boolossous, who we will give a special category for. Those keys are in particular basically the 4, different keys that have like 4 card types. In Dark Moon, it'll be the 5 Possessor Ghost fights. The Big Boo also kind of counts as a mini boss, but they also go up against Boolossous. Then the third game is every single floor boss in Luigi's Mansion 3. Starting off with the first game, I'm actually going to give each boss a scale between 1 to 5. With the one that gets first place being the one that has the highest average. For Chauncey, I'm gonna give him a 2 out of 5. The fight is definitely fine, it's just the music is not really appealing to me. I'm gonna most likely skip it. I'm most likely gonna skip his theme because it's just forgettable for me. Bogmire has a really nice theme, and also I like his appearance, and his fight is definitely solid. However, I do feel like his fight could be a little better, or maybe even a little more harder, especially if you're actually the second boss of the game. It's still pretty easy, so he definitely gets a 4 out of 5 from me. Then Vincent Van Gogh is a pretty solid character, and honestly, if anything, he should probably return actually as a Spornate of King Boo, along with even Helen Gravely, but I feel like actually he was just a pretty lame fight as a whole. The whole idea of him actually kind of spawning the ghosts from the paintings is kind of a neat touch, but I would have wished at least would have had like some more of a sense of, like frantic, or maybe say like he actually kind of like when the background actually painted the ghosts in the background before, and he actually had to kind of like fight the ghost for it, be able to kind of like capture him, and it kind of like rinse and repeat like 3 times. They could have done something kind of unique with that, but they didn't. So he gets a 2 out of 5. So the original game base gets a 2.67 out of 5 rating for all 3 bosses. Next up is Dark Moon. The first boss is the Grouchy Possessor. I do actually have to say it has a very clever boss fight that definitely kind of makes it kind of stand out in the Luigi's Mansion games. A nice first starter boss, much better than Chauncey. And even when we go to Luigi's Mansion 3, I'll explain him later. And then even more so, like, his theme is also really catchy. His bully personality is probably my low point for him, but that's mostly coming from the game where that doesn't have much personality for their boss ghosts in particular, so it doesn't make really go for much. He gets a 4 out of 5 rating from me. Second boss actually is the Harsh Possessor. Has very solid music. I do actually like his personality as well, and it was also actually the first half of the fight, which is the infinite staircase part. I will actually have to give it more praise. I do actually enjoy kind of like climbing up the stairs, trying to find your way to get to the top, while also finding out which one's actually the real staircase, which was the fake. And also the capturing ghosts. It's also kind of a nice sort of like setup to get into the top, into the actual boss fight. However, his boss fight itself is actually pretty easy. I would have wished they actually would have had like a gimmick, like kind of like the fake staircases. You have to actually figure out which one actually was the real one or not. But other than that, he gets a 3 out of 5. Third Possessor is the Overset Possessor. His gimmick is actually a giant clock, where every single round, he actually summons a certain wave of ghosts to deal with. This is basically kind of what Vincent Van Gogh's fight would have been had it actually been done better. Where like each phase he summons ghosts, and then after that, the more ghosts actually after a while, then he comes to fray to fight, and then actually he disappears into fight him a second and third time with even more waves of ghosts. His fight definitely deserves the 5 out of 5 rating. Music's also really catchy as well. I do actually like that. Especially actually when you try to speed up or slow it down. Fourth boss actually is the infamous one, the Shrewd Possessor. The music in the background is very catchy, and I can definitely agree actually with the fight being frustrating, but it also has to be, mostly timing based. It is motion controlled, which is definitely probably a big, dislike for a lot of people. Even YouTuber I do kind of personally know in particular. But other than that, if you actually have a lot of patience, you can actually still beat the fight really easily. Even get like a 3-star rank. It's not impossible. It just requires patience. But you still get a 2 out of 5, only kind of because it's, for me, like, even though actually patience is definitely something I actually can kind of handle, it is not really an easy one to kind of deal with. Finally, we have the Tough Possessor. Without really explaining much about him at all, he's like the final one you face off against, and is by far like the best of like the Possessor bosses. His fight with using actually the same actually skill abilities actually that the greenies use early on in the mansion as a whole is a nice little kind of sort of a way to kind of be like, oh hey, okay, use the carpet to actually defeat him. And the fact that you have to not only find in particular, you have to actually use the carpets to beat him. You have to actually knock both him down at the same time. His fight in particular is heavily based on like basically having like him cloning himself into two, so you have to knock down both the armor suits to actually kind of like sort of reveal him, and also the fact that also you can't even actually kind of attack him and capture him right off the bat, means that you're actually forced to let him actually do his charge attack, is actually definitely a nice way to kind of sort of up his difficulty. Even actually the second phase, adding sort of the giant suit of armor, really adds the tension to the fight. He definitely gets a perfect 5 out of 5 from me. And this is something I think I will say I do actually like for like boss fights in particular, is when like third phase always changes up and actually adds that sort of level of intensity, saying, hey, we're gonna go and take you down once and for all. We're gonna finish you, type of thing. But it is really a shame that actually quite a bit of people won't actually fight this guy, because, and for Dark Moon in particular, is only kind of because most people just give up on playing the game, either because they find out that E-Guy calls them all the time, which we'll get to him in Dark Moon later, and also the fact that also the Ice Boss really has the whole motion controls type thing, which, I'll be honest, I do actually kind of like the motion controls. It actually adds some more of the immersion to the game. But Dark Moon's total rating for him in total is actually a 3.8 out of 5. Luigi Mansion 3 is actually close to like a boss for every single floor, but in order actually to fight them, Steward is pretty much forgettable, so 2 out of 5. Chambrea is also the same thing as well, so 2 out of 5. Crueler has a good boss theme, and actually his character is actually pretty interesting. It is also a Luigi required fight, which is pretty much just pretty easy fight as a whole, so 3 out of 5. Chef Souffle, I do actually like how you have to actually work together with Luigi and Luigi actually defeat him, so 4 out of 5 for me. And my guess, Mozart, a 3-phase fight, which I really do enjoy for boss fights, and you have like say 3 different phases for each time. He gets a perfect 5 out of 5. King of Frights is definitely a fight. I remember actually his music was pretty average, but also his fight was also pretty annoying for me when I first played him. When I played him actually the second time around, he was still pretty much annoying, so yeah, 3 out of 5. Dr. Potter is pretty much a pretty mad boss fight as a whole, requiring you to actually wait for him to lunge his plan at you. And actually you can probably beat him actually with 2 slams, or even more so, not even with any slams at all. It's pretty easy. So he gets 3 out of 5. Morty definitely actually is sort of is not really a boss fight in particular, but it's mostly kind of his boss is actually more or less actually the movie set itself, and I do actually like it. However, I do kind of wish actually the movie actually really felt like it was actually recording part of your gameplay a little bit, or at least some of the cutscenes of your gameplay, instead of it being, just like a already scripted, scene a little bit. Just kind of saying. So it gets a 4 out of 5 for me. Ugg is next. Pretty clever boss fight, and I do actually like how it has like sort of like multiple phases as well, with phase 1 being heavily the T-Rex, and then phase 2 actually being Ugg himself. I will say he's not really the best boss fight, but he's definitely 3 out of 5. Clem is actually by far the one boss I would say most people would actually have the least favorability for in Luigi Mansion 3, but music is definitely catchy for me, but I will say personality is pretty average. Mostly, I guess I definitely understand the gameplay is really kind of the weakest point for him, but he also gets a 3 out of 5 for me. Cersei is a pretty annoying boss fight. It's pretty good music and pretty good solid gameplay, but I definitely find her fight to be really pretty much. Her fight's by far pretty frustrating, and even more so, it almost seems like Cersei would be willing actually to get in, down and dirty with Luigi or something. Please someone don't draw that, or actually do it. I kind of want to see that. Okay. Floor 10. Next floor is actually the Mage Trio: Nikki, Lindsay, and Jenny. I do actually like the music, and actually, if anything, like the music and as well as their fight as a whole, actually having sort of like a 3v1 fight, and you have to actually capture them before actually kind of finding out, and you have like sort of like the fakes to deal with. It's a really good fight as a whole. 5 out of 5. Now for another 5 out of 5 boss fight, Captain Fishook. Really need to say more? The pirate theme fight which you're listening to right now, his battle is amazing. I don't even think I really need to explain more about him, but like he's honestly my personal favorite boss fight. All 3 phases is basically just great. If I had to say in particular for him, he's by far actually the boss fight that I would say all Luigi's Mansion games really should follow from. Where each phase goes from like being like a really good challenge, and then goes through like a nice moment of like okay, that's it, we're going all out on to take him on, take Luigi on. So perfect 5 out of 5. Probably give him a 6 out of 5 if I wanted to. Johnny Deepen, early game, deserves to be an early game boss. Could have been swapped with Mall Cop in particular, but he's basically just a 1 out of 5. He's probably the worst boss in Luigi's Mansion 3, and the lowest person in particular. And that's also what I'm going for. Then we also have ourselves. Actually, I forgot to write this in the script a little bit. It was my bad, but I almost forgot about the one boss. I forgot about DJ Phantasma, who's definitely actually a nice, last ghost left you have to face off against before you go for Helen Gravely. And as for a fight as a whole, she is pretty decent for a fight. Would I say she's actually definitely a high rating one? Not really. She's pretty average at best, and I do actually kind of find her definitely be a more interesting fight to deal with. But I'm gonna go with giving her actually a 3 out of 5. Finally, we have Helen Gravely. Helen Gravely actually is a pretty solid. She has a really good personality, and now she kind of stand out. If anything, it would be really interesting to see how she would deal with appearing as like a future boss in a future Luigi's Mansion game. Next level games, if you're thinking of an idea to actually make Luigi's Mansion 4 be really good, bring back Helen Gravely and Vincent Van Gogh as like sort of like subordinates of King Boo, and have it be like sort of a new location with like King Boo actually having been like the leader, and having to actually you have to take on like not only Vincent Van Gogh and his forces, but Helen Gravely and her forces, and even actually Boolossous in general. Have like a three leaders in a whole. Just don't really do another mansion. I want to have a unique setting, but for Helen Gravely, I'm definitely give her a 5 out of 5. For all 15 floor bosses, I'm gonna give Luigi's Mansion 3 as a whole a 3.67 out of 5. With the original game having a 2.67 rating, Darkmoon having a 3.8 rating, and Luigi's Mansion 3 having a 3.47 rating. Last place is actually go to the original game. Second place is goes to the third game, and Darkmoon's gonna win again. With 5 categories out of the 20 done, I should go ahead and actually start plugging in my YouTube channel. This is sort of a brief little intermission to let people know that if they actually enjoy this video, please like the video, subscribe to my YouTube channel, and hit the notification bell for more content. And also, please join the live streams that I usually have running. Mostly for me, Mondays and Fridays are usually actually my YouTube live stream times. Thank you for sticking with me with this video, and let's continue onward with this rating. We talked about the bosses, but now it's time to talk about King Boo's right-hand Boo, Boolossous. This is actually split into two categories, the battle and the music. Starting with the fight, in last place is actually not the original game. This time, the third game gets dead last for the boss fight. The main problem I have is that it feels like you're required to fight him with a party. You can't fight him alone. Heck, he hasn't even required fight, and I feel like they shoved him at the end or something. This fight's also basically just a carbon copy of King Boo's final battle, so that's also kind of points off. Second place goes to Dark Moon. I love Dark Moon, as it's personally one of my top 10 favorite games of all time, but the fight with Big Boo is actually a bit frustrating. It's also the hardest mission to get a 3-star rank. Yet many original fans will criticize it by abandoning the game after specific points, and then criticize the game as a whole. Speaking of the original, the Boolossous fight is honestly the best boss fight in the original Luigi's Mansion game. The entrance to the fight itself, even just the gameplay depending on the version you have, just gives you just a fun battle. Boolossous music now. Last place goes to Luigi's Mansion 3. This actually was very hard for me to decide as all three themes were great. Heck, second place is actually the original and Dark Moon is actually in first place. The third game, after playing and battling Boolossous at least over 20 times, I found the fight to be just meh at best. Even the theme got stale for me. The original theme is catchy, and Dark Moon has just that creepy circus vibe that makes the fight a lot more tense. There's also bonus points with how, the music actually kind of alters whenever actually Boolossous actually is popped or not. So in total, the third game has the least memorable Boolossous fight and theme. The original has a good fight and a neat theme, while Dark Moon has a neat fight, but has a very good theme. Now for Luigi's main supporting ally, Onion Head, Professor Egad. His worst appearance, I have to say, is in the original game. To me, he felt like he cared far more for his research than he really did for Luigi. His main focus actually was just getting all the portrait ghosts and the paintings to study them. What's even more ironic is that the portrait ghosts, to me, I felt like were the victims in this story, because they just wanted to live in peace. Kind of ironic, and that's actually what King Boo kind of wants. He wants to put him in the paintings. Second place goes to Dark Moon. Him calling Luigi a lot is annoying, especially in the early parts of the game, but in later parts, it is kind of crucial sometimes when he calls you, usually the most opportune time that I'll tell you what you need to do, usually. It is handy. But he does care for his research at first, but then he starts to care more for Luigi. Even to the point where, he's even actually pixelates himself over to Luigi right at the end of the game. That actually gets pretty touching. First place is Luigi's Mansion 3. In this case, Egad does care for his research, but he's also more understanding of Luigi wanting to rescue his friends and the princess. He does actually act like, you, again, type of thing, but even then, he's willing to actually help you out in every way he can. Heck, he's even grateful for being rescued, as he had been captured in actually either Luigi's Mansion game, original or Dark Moon. But I don't really find Egad to be that character really can't change as much in his personality, so I think the whole ghost research is definitely a nice personality trait for him. So he has the weakest character arc in comparison to Luigi, King Boo, and even actually Mario to an extent. But Luigi Mansion 4, who knows? Luigi Mansion 4 could actually give Egad a way to kind of stand out compared to the other three games. Please release is actually an interesting Egad in a fourth Luigi's Mansion game. Next level. Multiplayer. Both gameplay and bosses. I'm going to start with the gameplay and then go right to the bosses in the next part. I will mention that I will take the original game's co-op gameplay of 3DS Remake as the multiplayer. The original does not have multiplayer, which would obviously mean that you would probably get dead last, but I want to give it at least a fair shot at it. Luigi's Mansion 3 has the main game, and then the multiplayer is also the Scarescraper, and also has the ScreamPark. Luigi's Mansion Dark Moon has only the Scarescraper as multiplayer. Its single-player campaign is just single-player. If I'm going to have to go with the one that's actually the worst, I have to go with the 3DS Remake. I was sad not able to actually kind of stream footage of the 3DS Luigi's Mansion game, as well as also didn't really have a friend really kind of play the game with me when I was doing it, so it didn't really help me out too much. But other than that, I've seen videos of people actually playing through the game, even actually Jar from the completions actually playing the game, and how he had a lot of trouble with it. So that really kind of signs me out with it. with that as well. It does not work as well. So the 3DS remake, if anything, just doesn't do much justice for the original, sadly. Could be better on the Switch, maybe. Who knows? Second place goes to Luigi's Mansion 3. The main story, the multiplayer, was something I was never able to experience as well because I didn't have really a friend to kind of play it with me. But as for the ScreamPark, I wanted to try to do it one time, but I never really got a friend really willing to kind of join me with it. So I had to kind of like sort of wait till I can get a good time. I should do it with them. I didn't want to do the ScreamPark with them, but if only I could do it actually online gameplay instead of like locally. But as for the multiplayer Scarescraper, it's a lot of fun. However, the mission structure is kind of a problem for me. First off, you only could choose. You can't really choose the mission you want to use, and you have to actually literally, basically, it's all basically completely random. But you have basically basic ghost capture, collect the treasure, toad rescue, co-extermination, the mini ghost raid, which is basically a massive ghost capture spree, and you have a bunch of mini ghosts, and then you have the boss fight floors. The boos are far more annoying in third game than they really are. I mean, if anything, the boos are probably their most frustrating in this Scarescraper than they are in Dark Moon. And not to mention as well, a lot of the traps, honestly, if anything, they make the entire game impossible to play alone. Like you almost like are forced to actually have either Luigi out at all times, or just most of the time just focus on like. It's impossible to play to beat the Scarescraper solo, no matter how many floors you try. I mean, if it is possible, I would love to kind of see someone actually do that, but for me, it's always been a bit of a struggle. A lot of the floors really just are not really forgiving for single-player campaigns. I mean, if you don't have any friends, then obviously you don't even be able to do Scarescraper, which means your gameplay for Luigi's Mansion is pretty much just toast. But Dark Moon honestly has the best multiplayer. First reason, it actually says Scarescraper allows you to choose the number of floors required. Just like with Luigi's Mansion 3, although Luigi's Mansion Dark Moon has far more drastically floors. Dark Moon can do 5, 10, 25, and then like an infinite. Luigi's Mansion 3 only has the 5, 10, and 20. That's kind of a sad thing. That's kind of sad. 2, you also can. Dark Moon also has a difficulty limit, which means you can choose between easy, normal, or basically easy, normal, hard. Your difficulties are basically depending on, what do you want to do. If you want to go for the intensive difficulty with your friends, by all means you can do that. You also have a choice to choose actually your game mode. You have Ghost Capture, Pull-to-Pup Rally, and Rush mode. It's also possible to beat it alone, even if you don't have any local friends because they banned Dark Moon, or even can't do it online real easily. Playing online with the third game, Dark Moon is not as easy as playing with the third game, but it is something that is kind of a thing. Other than that, I will say, if I want to add anything else, Dark Moon definitely has a far superior Scarescraper, and we've not even hit the bosses yet. Let's get to the bosses. Multiplayer bosses. The original has honestly not the best bosses in general. I'm gonna be honest, excluding really Boolossous, and a lot of the bosses actually in the Luigi's Mansion 3DS remake is basically kind of the same as the original game on the GameCube. I mean, it is kind of the same, but it's a remake, but the multiplayer is just exactly the main story mode, so I'm not gonna really explain anything with this as well. Just figure Luigi's Mansion is getting another dead last. If you want to skip this or end the video now, obviously, I'm sorry for your loss. But Luigi's Mansion 3 also is kind of a low point as well, because the mini bosses in particular are really lacking. All the mini bosses itself are just rare ghosts, and that's literally what they are. They don't even have much of a personality. They're just pretty much just carbon copies of the regular ghosts, just with different forms or abilities. There's like nothing unique with them at all. The fact that also if you want to try to 100% the game, you have to literally capture 40 of the rare ghosts, which means you have to have at least friends who are willing to at least kind of share a rare ghost or two with you. Or if you're playing online with randoms, then you have to hope at least they're willing to at least kind of share at least one rare ghost for you, which in many cases they're gonna most likely try to snag them from you. The boss, not to mention as well, also the boss of Scarescraper, which I mentioned with Boolossous. His fight is just meh. For 100% in the game, you have to actually beat up Boolossous 20 times, and after a while, start trying to find, shortcuts to try, get up yourself to Boolossous by trying to join lobbies with people who are already like at floor, 7 or 8 or 9, or like floor 4, so you can at least kind of jump in at the very end. Very annoying. First place actually was a really massive clean sweep. Actually, is Dark Moon. If I combine the last two categories together, multiplayer, Scarescraper, and bosses, I would obviously pretty much be exactly the same. It wouldn't really matter too much. But I had to separate it a little bit because I wanted to kind of at least explain myself. For the mini bosses of the Scarescraper and Dark Moon are actually one of the 5 main ghosts in the mansion. Well, excluding hiders. Those being a Greenie, Slammer, Sneaker, Creeper, and Gopper. But they also have different unique themes representing different. They also have unique design representing different themes. For example, you might have a night theme, or a flower theme, or a fruit theme, or a reptile theme. Those themes are creative. The Greenie and Sneaker boss also will always come in 2, and actually the Greenie one actually will toss bombs, while the other actually uses portals that will launch you out of the room, forcing you to race back in. The Slammer boss has a shield that actually can regenerate, and the Goblin and Creeper can actually drop mostly more creepers to make you deal with tough ghosts. The enemy ghosts actually will come and try to attempt to stall you, which means actually in a sense you're battling not only the boss but also the enemies as well. Meaning in a sense it's a teamwork effort. It's far less, it's far more effective actually to have everyone team up and have one or two people dealing with the boss while everyone else kind of deals with the enemy ghosts coming to attack you. If I want to add even better, is that also everyone gets the ghost, even if you didn't attack the ghost directly. The third game really fails with this factor, but this is what actually Dark Moon really kind of shines with this Scarescraper. Final boss of the Scarescraper is a poltergeist known as the Brain. It is also a very powerful ghost, and it actually feels worthwhile to actually defeat a being that probably has the most amount of health of any ghost. Actually, heck, being a Scarescraper rewards everyone with not only gold, but also all the other Scarescraper ghosts you got in the Scarescraper. So, if I were to catch at least 3 Scarescraper boss ghosts, and they're all new, it would actually add into not only my inventory, or my vault, but also add to my friends' vaults as well. So everyone basically wins. The only people who don't really get the ghosts in the vaults are the ones that actually are playing the game via download play, but that's not really much of a thing really kind of go for. But at the very least, everyone gets the ghosts. We are halfway through this rating video, so now it's time to do another mid-roll ad. The ad in particular is actually going to be my Twitch channel, twitch.tv/GoldenYoshiStar1. Link will be in the description below. Join me on my Twitch streams, and if you haven't already, give me a follow, subscribe to me, and donate with me with either bits or regular donations. Please support me however you can, and even share my Twitch channel to others. Also, all Twitch streams that I do will be saved onto my YouTube channel, GoldenYoshiStar1, so if you have a chance to really miss them, you guys can go ahead and actually watch them there. Thank you very much, and let's get on with the video. Now, the next set of categories is split into 3 and 2 sections: King Boo and finishing the game. King Boo is our main antagonist of the 3 Luigi's Mansion games, and any and all other games that appear in the near future. There's obviously going to be no other way. It's going to always be King Boo as the final boss. If they flip that somehow, I'll be shocked. The next few categories in this case for King Boo is going to be character, boss fights, and boss music. The other categories is finishing the game, and the first half is based on beating the game normally and being 100%. Starting off with King Boo's character, I'm going to have to go with, for the terms of the 3 games, King Boo in the original game has the worst design of a character. His first design, and you're seeing on the screen via the video now, it was really bad. It was honestly kind of so bad. If anything, I think 3DS Remake actually saved him quite a bit of discomfort. Not to mention as well, his personality really was just low quality in my opinion. He was not like a grade A villain. I mean, to compare him in terms of villains that only existed in 2001, in terms of Mario villains, is really Cackletta, Bowser, Smithy, Donkey Kong, and Wario. And the worst part about it is Donkey Kong and even Wario to an extent, who are supposedly just like not really villains in a sense, are actually far more villain-like than King Boo himself. And same with Cackletta, which if you recall in my Mario and Luigi, lists, I actually criticized Cackletta quite a bit with the boss music. This is actually probably one of the times I probably would give it. This is actually probably the one time I'd actually give Cackletta actually praise. But I'm gonna go in second place. We have Luigi's Mansion 3. Comparing King Boo to all the villains that came out in 2013, 2019, plus the ones that were released in 2001, 2013, and then any games that of all Mario games, you have basically Phantasma, Wingo, the BFF, the best fitness friends or fiends, and Helen Gravely. King Boo does actually dominate in top of the villain category, but the only one really kind of like rivaling him would probably be Phantasma, and maybe even the BFF in particular. And he's definitely a much larger threat as a villain in this game is in the original, a little bit literally, if you know what I mean. But I will say that he wasn't really one cast at the trap. It actually was kind of Helen, so technically Helen was kind of the main antagonist, and it would have been better if they actually would have put King Boo as sort of like a plot twist type thing. They could have easily done that in a way, but they chose to actually reveal him early on, which kind of degraded with him a little bit. His design is also similar to his Dark Moon appearance a little bit, but when I do go over his battle, it's definitely a bit of an interesting concept with his. If I had to go for first place, obviously it'd be Dark Moon. King Boo, if you take all three designs of King Boo in all three games, most likely we got like a good image of him actually sitting there. Dark Moon's definitely kind of dominates in like the creepiest. Promotional artwork that shows King Boo behind, which is actually what you see based on the right side a little bit of the video, is actually pretty much creepy and as all hell. Comparing his villains, around the time before he came out in particular, is basically Princess Shroob, Grotus, the Shadow Queen, Count Black, Dimentio, Fawful, as well as any other villains that I previously mentioned before. And he basically kind of rivals a lot of the very popular and really top tier villains, in my opinion, with mostly being Count Black, Dimentio, Princess Shroob, basically those three in particular. And you already know how I feel about Grotus and the Shadow Queen. Actually, wait, no, you don't. I'll be talking about those guys. I'll be talking about those two probably in a different list in particular. But this is honestly King Boo at his best in terms of character. King Boo's boss battles. How do these three final boss fights compare? To put it bluntly, his first game final boss fight is by far the weakest in my own honest opinion. Reason 1, I feel like King Boo didn't really stand out as a unique villain and relies on the Bowser suit really to defeat Luigi. The moves that King Boo uses in this form is basically the Fire Breath, Inhaling ability, which is basically a precursor to the Bowser Inside story, Ice Balls from when he's headless, and then also summoning Spike Balls. The way to beat him is actually using the Spike Balls, which are also count as bombs, to help kind of, basically knock Bowser's head off, and then reveal him to basically, then after that, start sucking up King Boo's 500 HP. The arena of the battle is actually the rooftop of the mansion, with the flames all around, and I will admit and say, like, the backdrop really fits the setting for a final battle. However, I feel like it actually feels like it'd be far more of a Bowser fight than really a King Boo, or even just a fusion. I've also read quite a couple times where like they've done with fan fictions, where when they've done King Boo as a villain, they've basically kind of repeated the OG story, usually again and again, and they make the final boss, instead of being Bowser, in King Boo's suit, with the King Boo being Bowser's suit, it's King Boo in a dry Bowser suit. And that's honestly I'm not really kind of a fan of. It's honestly one of the worst kind of final bosses for a Luigi's Mansion game. In second place is going to be Luigi's Mansion 3. This is actually while I'm talking about the gem that King Boo actually has in that game. And King Boo's attacks currently actually King Boo actually attacks in the game in various ways, either slamming down, launching fireballs, his thunder, or even actually a tongue whip, which either can go for like you go for the slam, a roll, which usually only happens during the phases 2 and 3, and then basically the spin, where after he slams a couple times, he actually spins and actually forces you to jump again. There's also a fight that actually, there's also a thing that actually happens with the Boolossous fight. If anything, you could probably figure it out a little bit. The Boolossous fight in Luigi's Mansion 3 is identical to the fight with King Boo. That's also kind of the downgrade of why the Boolossous fight really kind of loses it a lot. There's also a multi-phase fight. Once Luigi actually launches a bomb into King Boo's mouth, he basically kind of becomes vulnerable to basically getting slammed. When you're trying to do a slamless run, it really does suck. And I do kind of wish actually King Boo at least actually had a health bar, and not have like the whole, like you gotta wait for him actually to dodge his attacks before you're able to kind of beat him. It almost kind of feels like one of those like regular boss fights, which is definitely sort of a downgrade with him. I will say like phase 2 and 3 when he starts and the King Boo clones definitely kind of reminds me of the whole Luigi's Mansion arcade King Boo fight, where he actually uses duplication actually to kind of fight you. Although if anything, I would have rather actually the clones actually would have had HP as well, and maybe that might have actually made the fight better, but it's neither here nor there. Phase 3 is honestly where I think where King Boo really kind of shines in this fight. Is when actually he literally actually enlarges the painting to basically to a humongous size, and then causes sort of like a massive like black hole in a sense, with the painting being like sort of the center being like the black hole itself starting to suck up the entire hotel. King Boo definitely is, and also King Boo actually turned himself into 3 different clones in his large size. Like, if anything, like it's a frantic dash to try to figure out which one the real one is and take him on for good. First place is obviously Dark Moon. Now, the reason why I find Dark Moon honestly in his final boss fight in that game the best is because King Boo honestly just ditches the Bowser suit and decides to fight him yourself. There's also 5 phases, which is also the most amount of phases for any fight, and the set points for each phase between each phase actually kind of fits much better than just having like sort of like a back and forth for like dodge a barrage of attacks, damage him, rinse and repeat type thing. That was kind of the main problem the third game had. And even the first game, well, the first game doesn't have much of that problem. The first game only has like 1 phase. It's just repeat back and forth type thing. But King Boo's actually attacks he can use in particular is a slam attack, which actually causes sort of a shockwave. This actually then basically launch spike balls in the air before they come down. He can be flashed, but will help with our location. He's also about the same size as Luigi in a way, so he's not like a massive size. So it's not like Luigi fighting a Goliath, basically. He also has a whole lightning attack, which only starts appearing during phase 3, and in phase 5 he does like a lightning barrage, which then actually, of course, you actually kind of dodge to a single space. King Boo actually in the second phase and the fourth phase actually will chase you, forcing you actually to kind of go for like a full-on like retreat. This is honestly by far like the most intense, because like when you get to those phases, you've already tried to capture King Boo like once or twice before, and you failed, and you're like, oh shit, I've got to get out of there. Heck, if anything, King Boo's final boss fight, if you try to do actually without affecting a single piece of treasure, is actually a very good challenge. And if you have a 3DS, please try it out. Like, I mean it. Like, try it out. Try beating the entire game without really collecting any treasure. You will definitely find yourself a worthwhile challenge. Far more worthwhile than really playing the original game. Far more worthwhile than really playing the original game with the coinless challenge. Now, what better way to end King Boo off on a good note than the theme that he has in his final boss fight? All three final boss fight themes for Luigi's Mansion 3, for all the three Luigi's Mansion games, are great. However, in this ratings list, there has to be one that has to get last place title, and that's gonna have to go to the original game. Yeah, combining all three categories for King Boo into basically one could be pretty obvious in particular, but I want to separate them because I want to have like different like reasons for why the original game actually is the worst. But I will say the music has the intense beginning and works really well actually when Bowser spawns. However, it's like once right after you get to like the 30-second mark of the song, when they add the whole vacuum noise, it kind of just doesn't really brings it away from me. I mean, it's really kind of just the music in particular that kind of draws me away. In Luigi's Mansion, in second place is Luigi's Mansion 3. This battle does actually have 5 unique themes, 3 of them being the boss theme and 1 being kind of sort of the slam theme. And there's also sort of a theme that plays in between like the final phase and the second final phase a little bit. Phase 1 has that King Boo just ready to fight. It's also kind of similar to his own main theme a little bit, only slightly altered. Still pretty good. The whole like slamming King Boo theme has a whole like nice little banjo tone, so it's like you're kind of sort of you're rounding up King Boo before you give him a good old 1, 2, 3 slam. Phase 2 does actually speed up the music, which as with King Boo actually kind of, you know, like enforcing his attacks. Phase 3 does have the whole, you know, like interesting factor where King Boo then goes ahead, gets mad, he pops through the painting, and you have the whole dun 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 before actually you have the King Boo actually literally increasing the size of the base of the portrait, but at the same time as well you also hear, you know, like a dun, like it was like the keyboard like slam on the keyboards repeatedly every time King Boo enlarges the painting. Which, if you were to go ahead and watch any and all like Luigi's Mansion 3 videos and just listen to that one point right there, you actually can hear it pretty well. Even Luigi having the whole like, you know, oh shit, I'm in trouble type thing. Then the final part of the phase thing, which is honestly the best part, is the whole, you know, like where King Boo is finally, you know, using his full power. He's berserk. All of the attacks are like almost in a barrage. And it turns out basically to kill Luigi for good. Even actually the idea of like having the whole setting of the painting actually trying to suck up everything and the whole time limit really helps out for this fight as well. But I will say the fight itself, that having the really cool, you know, like theme boss music, it does not compare to really kind of the superior Luigi's Mansion final boss theme, which is basically Dark Moons. Number 1 really goes to Luigi's Mansion Dark Moon, with not really any surprise. But let's start with the initial theme. The theme that plays during King Boo's talks to you is his main Dark Moon theme. It does play in the third phase, in the first phase, third phase as well, with the fifth phase being entirely different. But the whole intensity behind it is King Boo's definitely a threat. He's not massive. He doesn't have the whole, you know, fear of using another being to kind of scare you type of thing. He's an actual threat, and he's using his powers against you. He is the king of illusion. That's why it makes him a terrifying foe. It's also why he's probably, in my opinion, he has a lot of respect for me. I mean, you can also say, you know, Hurricane 500,000 actually also made him actually even better, but that's neither here nor there. King Boo as a whole was honestly deserving to be a better villain, and Darkmoon kind of, you know, faded up with him a little bit. Phases 2 and 4 had the whole, you know, chase sequence phases, which I do actually really like about the fight as a whole, which I mentioned before. So I like how actually like it forced you actually to switch your strategy. Instead of being like you're fighting King Boo, now you have to run away and you have to fight him again. That's something Luigi's Mansion 3 really kind of missed, and the original game also didn't really have. Phase 2 has that one little theme. It's like pretty neat, your chase, and then Phase 4 has a whole, you know, like frantic music, where it's like we're like, oh shit, you're in trouble, and the music finally is like picks up, and now you're like on the you're really freaking out. I will definitely link the music to like, I guess in the entire, I'll link the entire soundtrack in the description below of all 3 games so you can listen to them. Like, I highly recommend listening to them. But in those phases, Luigi's literally like your goal is just to get out of there as fast as possible. Even though upgrade run, it's like intense. That was actually part where I always kind of lose on those runs. King Boo's last stand in the theme is actually the theme that plays in Phase 5, and the intensity of King Boo now going all out is perfect. While the third game has the music where, like, say, each phase just speeds up the song a little bit, which is kind of just okay, Darkmoon keeps that dark tone while also speeding it up and keeping King Boo's creepy theme in it. This is also fitting very fair when King Boo's now using all stops to defeat you. If you add a little 130 mark, where there's actually a bit of a drums in the background, really adds to the immersion of King Boo not going down. It may not have the time limit like the third game, but it gives a mental time limit of how long you have to defeat him. I mean, if they actually had a time limit for the third game, that'd be pretty interesting, a pretty good challenge. Darkmoon hard mode, anybody? Defeating King Boo once for all in this game actually feels satisfying. Unsurprisingly, Darkmoon has the best King Boo, with the third game getting second place and last place going to the original. Even more surprising is that the 3 categories for King Boo are unnecessarily as results were exactly the same. King Boo as a whole was weak as a villain in the original game. He was very intimidating in Darkmoon, but in the third game they feel he would have doubled back to the OG game and make King Boo not an intimidating villain. I'm glad King Boo is keeping the intimidating King Boo over the King Boo the original game created. Next level games, please make King Boo a bigger threat than Darkmoon's King Boo. Like surpass Darkmoon's King Boo. Don't go back to like OG Luigi's Mansion. Beating the games normally is an accomplishment in itself for anybody, and it gives you actually a feeling of satisfaction that once you've beaten the game, you've basically just beaten it. Although really there are 2 categories kind of before we break. There's also the one Mario part off to kind of add into this, which is how Mario plays out in the story, since he is always part of the ending. We'll deal with him like when we get to him. But to go with the different endings, we'll start with the original game. The first game actually does kind of reward you actually with the paintings of all the ghosts you capture, and when I go talk about the 100% completion goal, you actually get to see kind of sort of a nice difference. Rewarding you actually with every time you actually beat a boss ghost, you get all the portraits of that area, and depending on how much damage you've taken throughout the boss fights or how much you've done and certain achievements you've acquired, you get some different color frames, either bronze, silver, or gold, respectively. In the 3DS remake, there's the platinum rank. Those 4 different portraits are actually something that you can definitely get, and even on your first playthrough, you're probably going to get yourself a mix and match of portraits. Some of the earlier ones are going to have like the gold portraits. You might have a couple silvers, even a few bronzes. It's a sort of a fair trade-off. Like, you're not going to get on your first run through, you're not going to get like a perfect rank for the mansions. Even more so, like in your first rank of the mansion, you'll probably get yourself at least a B if not an A rank. I mean, I got a B rank when I first played it, but I was like really close to getting an A rank. I was off by like a little bit of money. Really frustrating. The ending theme actually is also pretty catchy as well, and it's honestly, in my opinion, probably the catchiest song in the entire game, besides the Boolossous theme, which is kind of sad when you think about it. Like when there's not much music in terms of the soundtrack as a whole, anyway. Luigi Mansion 3 as the second place title, which is right after, and basically the ending in particular is kind of simple. Right after Luigi captures King Boo, he'll attempt to grab the gem, but the entire hotel actually will collapse due to actually King Boo's actually final fury attack that he did, and as well as also probably, if anything, I think maybe even actually the slams that Luigi does with King Boo probably also kind of helped weaken the foundation. The hotel actually was pretty sturdy as a whole, but due to actually the whole giant portrait, having massive gravitational pulls trying to suck in the entire hotel, really kind of destroyed the foundation. However, Luigi kind of falls to his doom. Polterpup saves him, gem disappears, and then the ghosts come back to their senses. This is kind of so not really as clean as I would say another game we'll talk about pretty much in a little bit, but I will say I was kind of curious about like those ghosts in particular, even more so the ones that actually that in a sense were all just the portrait ghosts, the boss ghosts, because all of them in a sense had their own kind of personality, but yet none of them really kind of come out. So either were they the ones actually that EGOT actually had brought with them, and were the ones that kind of got released, or were they part of Helen's team? And I don't know for sure. Who knows? Are they actually part of Helen's team, or are they just like ghosts that EGOT had that Helen basically helped release thanks to King Boo? But Darkmoon definitely has the best ending. Luigi defeats King Boo, like always. You know, there's not much of a surprise there. He grabs the gem and is then actually warped back into to the treasure's mansion. He's warped back right in front of where the picture frame is. However, Egad also warps nearby him. He actually pixelates himself over to Luigi to let him know that he can use his Dark Light device to rescue Mario. This is actually the only part of all 3 Luigi's Mansion games where you actually get to control yourself actually to rescue Mario. You yourself get to rescue Mario. Once he's actually released, the 5 toads actually will then appear through the pixelator, and then actually with Luigi and the 5 toads, they'll go ahead and will go and turn to make the Dark Moon go back from all the pieces right back to normal. And then Dark Moon goes into the sky and actually pacifies all the ghosts. Eyes change back to normal, and you see all the ghosts actually even the areas. Like, even you see inside the vault, all the other areas as a whole, and the ghosts just like going back to normal, like they're all just happy. And then Egad actually releases them all, like, which is really nice. You even see like all the ghosts coming back out. They're like all hype, like the entire everything goes back to normal. It's just actually perfect. Even actually the Polterpup, which you see, is actually feeling sorry for what he's done, because he knows what he did was actually kind of wrong, and the whole point. But he feels kind of remorseful. And Luigi actually kind of like congratulating, actually saying "good doggy," "nice doggy," or "nice doggy," as she kind of has pulled up into Luigi's arms, which is really kind of nice. Even more so doing that whole photo op with him at the very end. And I will say actually the best ending I think of all, and honestly if anything, if you were to actually play through the game, get a tear in your eye, is seeing actually kind of Luigi kind of like having Polterpup with him at the very end. Even actually Polterpup just kind of just sleeping on Luigi's lap. That is just very touching. There's like no doubt about it. Like, if you really want a touching ending, you should look at Dark Moon over really kind of the first or the third game. 100% Luigi's Mansion games. What do you really get in terms of completing all these games? If you do the completionist for all 3 Luigi's Mansion games, then honestly I'm not going to make any comparisons to make them topping them directly, because the completionist really actually completed all 3 Luigi's Mansion games. In this case alone, all 3 games you can choose to complete or kind of completely. Most games don't really give you an 100% completion goal, and you have to decide whether or not it's worth completion or not to do it normally. However, in Dead Last, I don't think I'd give it to the original game. And honestly, really, whenever you try to beat the game 100%, you have to beat the original game and also the Hidden Mansion, the main game, which is capturing all 50 boos, getting A rank for all the mansion, and gold fortress for all the ghosts. And you're basically done, and that's it. 3DS Remake, they had to do a lot of other tasks to have you complete the game, and although there's improvement, it's not really worth kind of completing the game 100%. It's better just to spend the game actually 7 hours playing the game, and then just put it on the shelf, and that's about it. Second place actually goes to Dark Moon. The 100% reward is actually a 3 gold EGAD rank medal on your profile pic, in which you can then go into the Scarescraper and have fun with others who've done all the work to 100% the game. Sadly enough, there's not many people you can actually really kind of play Dark Moon Scarescraper with, because most people have already kind of, if anything, stopped playing Dark Moon, or have just abandoned it as a whole, or even out even using 3DS as a whole. Can't surprise me, I'm getting a 3DS capture card. Actually, wait, no, there's not. I actually want to kind of play a bunch of games on 3DS via my live stream channels. Hint, hint, I'll be able to actually do some of those pretty soon. Although, if they were to actually, well, even then, having the 3-star rank is definitely kind of a nice little goal as a whole, but it's not really enough. I mean, even more so, you also get like the 5 statues of the different, for each of the mansions that you complete 100% by collecting all the gems. And all 3-star ranks is definitely really nice actually to have in your whole, icon a little bit, but it's not really amazing. I mean, unless they do actually port Luigi Mansion 1 and 2 on the Switch. It'll be pretty neat to see how they'll deal with it. But first place, actually, it's not surprisingly Luigi's Mansion 3. The 100% completion goal is actually a golden poltergeist, and you actually have it whenever you play your copy, as well as actually Scarescraper. Anyone actually has 100% the game, and it's actually nice to see. The 3 Luigi's Mansion games don't require much to show that you've completed the game, but Luigi Mansion 3 goes a step further to let you know that, hey, you did everything, great job. Now you can show your friends the many hours you spend on this game while they not care and wonder why you wasted your time with something like this over playing a game that you don't even care about. Oh, wait, oops, I'm ranting again. Shit, let me get back on track. Time for the third promo. My final self-promotion. Besides my YouTube channel and Twitch channel, the next best thing I can really kind of promote is my Discord server. linked in the description below. If you join me, you can make requests for the weekly Twitch game that I play on Saturdays, as well as join the voice chat to say hello. If you do join, please make sure to mention that you saw this video. Thank you very much, and let's get down to the final 5 slots. Mario. The one Luigi is mainly rescuing in the 3 Luigi's Mansion games. How does he interact with Luigi and other characters around him? Last place for me goes to the original game. In terms of interaction, we have 3 different moments where Mario interacts with different characters. First scenario is him actually banging on the painting with King Boo. This interaction for me is honestly his best one. This is actually the whole simple fact that Mario is actually afraid of King Boo, and he also sees Luigi and wants to try to get Luigi to kind of, get out of there, save himself, being a nice older brother. The second interaction with him is basically, after King Boo is defeated, and Mario's actually kind of relieved, and he's from Luigi defeating King Boo and saving him. It's a pretty nice interaction as well, and it also shows kind of nice little brotherly interaction. And then the third interaction with him is right at the very end, where you see, Mario getting almost beat up just to kind of get released from the painting. Yeah, that part at this point is entertaining, but it's honestly not really that great of an interaction with Mario and Luigi, because at the very end, Luigi's just laughing at Mario. Now, most people will probably say he's laughing because he's crying tears of joy type thing, but that's just not the best thing. Alright, compared to the other 2 games. Second place is Luigi's Mansion 3. Luigi actually rescues 6 characters in the game. 3 of them are basically Toads. You have the Mario, Peach, and then Egad. When you rescue them all, which is kind of a little different. For the case of Egad, he's grateful, he's kind of surprised that Luigi's there, and then he and Egad basically make a run for it. With each of the Toads, you get some nice, clever interaction with them. With, say, the first Toad seeing it's Luigi and then hugging him. The second one seeing it actually it's Toad and then holding out the button. And the yellow Toad basically kind of, sliding down and actually Luigi catching him. With Mario, he gives Luigi, he embraces Luigi before immediately saying, "Alright Luigi, let's go rescue the princess." Peach's rescue, she's also happy as well, but at the same time as well, what happens is she immediately kind of embraces the bros before immediately, turning around to see King Boo kind of taunting them. In the final cutscene of them actually being rescued, you see everyone actually kind of coming out, with even actually Mario actually kind of grabbing onto the Toads, as Peach is actually the first one who actually exits the painting, which is actually kind of funny. But when you compare it to the other games, it's pretty good. It's a pretty nice ending, but it could be better. First place is Luigi's Mansion Dark Moon. Now, the reason why I actually find Dark Moon's Mario rescue Mario is much better is because of the following. First off, you get no instance that Mario is actually captured at all. Unlike the first game, and even actually the third game, where it's pretty much obvious that Mario's captured. In Dark Moon, you're given actually kind of a glimpse of Mario being captured. You start to kind of see him actually in the portraits during during the snapshot photos that the Toads bring, and you don't really notice it at first. You kind of see glimpses of it, and you're thinking, wait, no, is that really him? Only then later on, King Boo then reveals himself, and you see Mario directly during the whole last in Treacher's Mansion. Then after that, your goal after that is basically to save Mario. Heck, even more so if you actually play through the game and actually kind of do your taunts. Luigi doesn't actually call for Mario until after Mario is actually fully revealed, which is actually a nice little touch. Even right at the very end, once you beat King Boo, it is actually you yourself actually rescue Mario. You're the one who actually uses the Dark Light device actually to reveal him. Is not Luigi doing it himself or Egad using his machine. You yourself actually do the rescuing. And actually Mario actually congratulates Luigi in a sense. He actually basically says, and I quote, "Luigi, you saved the Mario. Way to go. Number 1." Like, in my opinion, you feel self gratification for rescuing Mario. And a lot of his quotes are just just amazing. That's part of the game. It's actually, honestly, in my opinion, probably Mario's the most personality next to Mario and Rabbids Kingdom Battle, which I think if anything Hurricane 500,000 should play. And then after that, we have also at the very end, once Luigi interacts with Polterpup, which I mentioned in the ending as well, is Mario says, "That's my bro," and Luigi actually responds with, "Thanks, Mario." I mean, when you compare Mario to any other games, like Mario actually in a sense actually lets Luigi play like center role even more so. Like in a sense, it's sort of the year of Luigi type thing, which is why the game is important to special to Luigi. But you see Mario actually like more grateful to Luigi than he is in the first game, which is also kind of why, in my opinion, like Darkman has the best version of Mario in particular. Boos. Oh boy. These enemies are interesting to deal with. I mentioned the worst one of the 3 games is actually the original one? You probably figured that as much. First reason is that the boos are required to beat the game, which honestly isn't really a bad thing. That's actually kind of the only positive about it. However, the way you beat the boos is mostly reliant on literally sucking them until their HP's at 0. What makes these boos frustrating is how they can escape the room you're in with them. And even at a point, they can go to another part of the mansion that you may not be able to reach until a later point of the game. Heck, the game forces upon you boo requirements just to pass certain areas. To fight with Boolossous, you have to capture like 20 boos. King Boo, you have to capture like 40. When you get ready to actually fight, the hidden mansion, the limits are actually kind of different. With King Boo actually having sort of a limit of at least 45 boos. It's insane. I don't know the Boolossous. I don't remember the Boolossous limit for the Boolossous fight and for the hidden mansion. Someone can explain to me what it is anyway. But yeah, the music capture Boo is honestly kind of forgettable for me. I mean, it's kind of like similar to kind of King Boo's music in a way, a little bit. Though it's kind of like sort of like higher pitched a little bit. Actually, wait, no, it's not. Actually, no, it's not. It's a different theme, but it's not memorable for me. Second place is Luigi Mansion 3. Honestly, reason 1 for these boos is actually it's kind of a process on their own. I mean, I do like how the music of the floor changes to the theme of the boo, which lets you know actually if a boo is actually in the room. However, failing to capture the boo, you'll turn to a few bats, which are honestly by far the most annoying, non-ghost like enemy in the game. And they actually will swarm you, give you frustrating to kind of deal with. What I do actually like how is whenever actually you fail to catch a boo, it does a damn damn damn. But if you catch a boo, it's like ba-da-da-da. And it's a nice little jingle if you catch or fail a boo, which is actually really fun, and I like that. Music actually when you capture a boo, which is what you're hearing right now, is definitely pretty catchy. Not to mention as well, the boos and stuff actually in that game actually attack you. They have a nice little like kind of spinning attack, which I really kind of enjoy. And the only way to actually defeat them actually is kind of slam them 20 times. However, the Dark Light device kind of makes them pretty much a complete joke of a fight. That's honestly one of the big problems I have with the Dark Light device in the 3rd game compared to Dark Moon, is that you can literally hold the thing out the entire time and immediately just like walk around or even just spin until you actually find the boo. You don't have to actually kind of worry about it, which is really kind of a shame. Dark Moon definitely has the best kind of boos, which in my opinion actually the reason why is only because like every single boo is capturable in a single mission. Well, no, all boos are captured in their own mission. All the boos have personalities, so that's not really something to kind of compare about. And how you capture each boo is usually based upon like different puzzles, or usually looking at different rooms and seeing, I should say, what's usually different. If you notice something odd about a room in particular that you may have not have noticed, you can go ahead and actually reveal it with a Dark Light device, and then actually, boom, there's a boo. Some boos actually require different things, and even more so, sometimes even when you're actually playing through the mission, you'll notice actually something odd about a room, and you'll find out the boo. It kind of forces you to kind of sort of like say, okay, what looks different in the room? And when you find the boo, it's like, hey, look at that, there you are. Added the part actually the way you beat the boos is actually literally you use a Dark Light device, but because Dark Light device has the limit, you have to actually know exactly when to actually use it. So if you don't actually find the boo right off the bat, you have to actually wait until the boo actually makes an appearance, or at least try to like find a good spot to reveal the boo. The boo also will turn invisible, actually will charge you sometimes, or even use also their spirit balls to actually turn things invisible. If you actually catch a boo and actually stuns them, you go ahead and actually suck them up, pull their tongue back, and then let them go fly around and bounce all over the place. Kudos if you get a room actually where a boo actually is trapped in a spot where you can actually bang them on 2 different poems or like a wall. You can literally get a lot of coins off of them. Though when you ever try to do it for a coinless run for boos, they're definitely more frustrating. Music used for them actually kind of depend on the mansion a little bit, but usually most of the ambience tune the tone when the ghosts are in the room. So, in a sense, Luigi Mansion 3 definitely gave the booze a better theme, while Dark Moon kind of eliminated it. But Dark Moon definitely has the best booze. Music. And this goes with excluding all boss-related music. Objectively, I can already tell that the views in this video will probably be a lot, but there will be mixed reception, with a lot of dislikes going to those OG fans who will hate me for doing this, but last place is obviously the original game. The original has the main theme, the ghost capturing theme, and then the Luigi whistling, which is added to the theme as well. Main theme is definitely catchy, don't get me wrong. However, I definitely feel like actually that once the room has lights on, the lack of background music really kind of just takes me out of it. For me personally, I can't find myself enjoying the game, and there's a bit of time, pretty much like majority of the time is probably, half the time is probably spent like in solid silence. I can't find myself enjoying the game when quite a bit, I mean, honestly, I'd rather actually play through the game in the dark or something, you know, over like playing the game. I mean, heck, even the 3DS remake doesn't really kind of fix it, and even actually the ghost capturing music is kind of just, eh. Second place actually kind of goes to Dark Moon, which, in my opinion, is definitely kind of a surprise for me, but there's a reason why I chose the third game over the second one. And honestly, the original Dark Moon does like a little bit better than the original, but what's different is that you hear the theme throughout the entirety of the mansion, even though there's no like lights turning on and off. Heck, actually, the 5 mansion themes are kind of sort of similar variations of each other with different kind of, you know, like instruments and all that stuff. Even how it has the ghost capture theme, which is also kind of, you know, varied. They have a ghost theme, which is different. You have an ambience theme, even Luigi humming, and even actually the chaos themes, in my opinion, are probably the most catchy theme in Dark Moon in particular. And those two are definitely catchy, and I definitely find them listening. Then I'm more likely to listen to Dark Moon's like soundtrack than I am listening to like the originals, or even actually the third game to an extent. But Dark Moon honestly has a great soundtrack as a whole, and honestly, in my opinion, like, please look up all 3 soundtracks for all 3 games. Like, no matter what. Even if you actually like the original game, or you like the third game, or even Dark Moon, listen to all 3 soundtracks. I beg of you, just do it. Or heck, even more so, actually buy the games and actually play them. Like, play all 3 games. Now, I've never played the arcade version, but I'll be honest, I really want to play it. Now, Luigi Mansion 3, honestly, has the best music in particular, and it's only just excluding the boss music in particular, but the every single floor music has such a unique theme that it tells you, hey, look what room you're in, and what do you think? For example, if you're in a movie set, you hear like stuff that you hear like for like film productions and like whole like acting. You have like when you're a pirate, the pirate floor, you hear like pirate theme stuff. You're on shit. When you're on the dance floor, you ever hear the dance music. Even actually Helen's floor is sort of like a nice sort of remix of the main theme of the hotel, the daytime. Like every single theme, actually, in my opinion, is actually memorable. I mean, even actually, Boiler Works has the whole, like country, like vibe type thing. And if anything, I recommend get a chance to watch it, listen to music. I mean, if anything, had I actually stuck with Smash Bros. Ultimate spam and not increased my content, probably actually would never actually met the people that are actually part of my Discord server. Even people like, say, Evie, Susie, Mel, Aiden, those guys, which all have their own YouTube channels in particular. Susie in particular doesn't really do stuff with their content, but if anything, I would say recommend at least supporting, all of them in some sort of way. Heck, actually, Mel's actually currently playing Dark Moon himself, so please, if anything, I'll send a link to his videos in particular. Please support him. Alright. But I will say, Luigi Mansion 3 definitely kind of gains praise from me because of the music in particular, and even actually the Scarescraper, when you listen to the music, it's pretty catchy. Comparing their releases in comparison to, other games that came out the same year as them. Originally, I was actually going to do graphics, but honestly, comparing all 3 games in terms of graphics would be very difficult for me, so I decided to kind of scrap that. Now, I played actually quite a bit of games on all 3 of the consoles, but to make it kind of fair, I'm only organizing them based upon the games that were released on the same years. Now, for the case of Luigi's Mansion, the original game, since it came out near the end of the 2001 year, I'm going to also add 2002 as well. Not to mention as well, I could also probably add 2019, but because not many games, I'm going to check the game in particular on the 3DS version, never actually played, that's not going to really do much of an effect. But we'll start out with the first game. Now, Luigi's Mansion, for me, since the only games I can really kind of compare it to, in particular, is actually Super Smash Bros. Melee and Super Monkey Ball. Now, when I compare those games in particular, obviously I put probably, Melee probably at the worst, because I'm not really a Smash fan, which is kind of obvious. And then, despite me having a lot of the content of it, but in Super Monkey Ball being at the top. So Luigi's Mansion, the original game, is probably right in the middle, which is kind of, obvious. Next up is Dark Moon. The game came out during 2013, Year of Luigi, with the games Fire Emblem Awakening, Pokemon Mr. Dungeon Gates to Infinity, Mario and Luigi Dream Team, Pokemon X and Y, and Mario Party Island Tour. When I do actually make my top 10 favorite games of all time and top 10 3DS games of all time list, both Dark Moon and Dream Team will definitely be the games that definitely will appear on that list. And both Fire Emblem Awakening and Mario Party Island Tour are actually very fun games that I've actually played. I've had a lot of fun playing them. Well, I never actually beat Awakening. Spoiler alert. The only 2 games that 3DS games that are released in 2013 that I honestly find are kind of forgettable is actually kind of both Pokemon games. Gates to Infinity and then X and Y. Finally, Luigi's Mansion 3 came out in 2019, and all the 5 games I actually have played in 2019 actually have some way to decide the factor of actually where Luigi's Mansion 3 goes on my stance. Luigi's Mansion 3 will definitely get a lot of praise, as the game actually managed to boost my channel and actually managed to make me surpass 200 subs. Not to mention as well, it also kind of increased my Discord server by almost double. But the only game in particular I'd probably say definitely kind of tops Luigi's Mansion 3 is actually Super Mario Maker 2. Fire Emblem Three Houses actually only below because despite I've never actually really helped out my channel at all, and honestly the third route I was playing, I kind of got depressed playing it. Now, a lot of people kind of gonna bitch about Three Houses, getting depressed because, all the kind of fun stuff, but I kind of found myself actually kind of wishing for more, and after kind of playing through the first route, my hypeness of the game really kind of went down. Honestly, to the point where, in my opinion, I probably wouldn't really kind of would play it, and I've kind of just found myself to kind of not even actually trying even actually to kind of play the last game. Then we have, Pokemon Sword and Shield, which I will give it credit being a fun game, and I don't really plan on taking of DLC for it. And then finally, Yoshi's Crafted World, which I had a lot of fun, but my friends abandoned me from playing the game, which was kind of a sad thing. Kind of a sad story. Who knows, maybe if I actually were to replay the game again, I might get more views, because this time around I shall have different people watching me, people actually really care. But the game in last place would have to be the original Luigi's Mansion game, because honestly, there's really no other game that I've actually really played, and it actually has the fewest amount of games actually I've really played, which is kind of a sad thing. I haven't played many of the older GameCube games, or at least games that came out in 2001-2002 era, so sorry for the original game fans. It definitely had a good fight, and actually I played a lot of really good popular games from it, but it's not enough. Second place is Luigi's Mansion 3. I will say there was quite a few games actually were a blast to play, but quite a few of them actually were brought down because of my own friends. Which is why Dark Moon is actually in first place, obviously, because if anything, all the 3DS games in particular are actually pretty memorable for me. I mean, heck, why else actually would Dream Team actually dominate in my Mario and Luigi Boss and Final Boss themes list on the original and remake list? I mean, that game actually dominates quite a bit. Even the 2 Pokemon games I would go at the very bottom of my 2013's favorite 3DS games. They're definitely still actually pretty much still fun games in particular, but they're not really the best. I still have good memories of all those games. But let's get down to the final category, shall we? Replayability, or how likely I am actually to replay the respective game. All 3 games have some sort of level of replayability for everyone. However, if I had to look at the odds of me replaying a respective game for any reason, the original game gets dead last. Is the original game fun? Yes. Yes, it is. However, you can only have basically the main game, the Hidden Mansion, Treasureless Run, 100% of both versions, and then also the speed run. But for me, that's also kind of limiting. And it's also about coming up with any ideas for creating runs in this game in the first place. Because a lot of those runs in particular, there's not really much of creativity. And that is not come up with any ideas. I mean, second place actually, I mean, honestly, there's not much you can really kind of do with it. Second place is Luigi's Mansion 3. Your playing the game has a bit of ideas you can run with, besides the obvious normal 100% speedrun playthroughs. You also have a treasureless run and then a slamless run, as well as actually any other ideas that you may come up with while playing through the game. I'm also working actually on the slamless run with some people on my Discord server, which in particular I'll definitely be editing that video in a little bit. I actually did a little run in particular to see how far I'd go. Please actually watch that small little playlist if you can. First place is Dark Moon. Honestly, if you probably skipped all the way to the end or you actually stopped watching the video, you could probably already obviously tell, you know, Dark Moon definitely is kind of dominating over the original game by a lot. And if the dislike bar is actually pretty high because of it, I can obviously tell a lot of those people can't really respect the opinion of, you know, someone actually praising Dark Moon over the original. But let's go down to the reason why. Dark Moon actually has like every single mission in particular you try to go 3-star, which is a nice little challenge. It's also a little time limit. You try to beat the levels. You have a speed run. You have the 100%. You have the whole main game, and even also the whole, you know, like no upgrade run, which is definitely something I've done in particular. Which is also a treasureless run, more so an extreme, not really extreme form of the treasureless run. And there's even also a chargeless run that I'm kind of coming up with. We'll try to figure out how to do. And also you can learn how to beat Dark Moon. I mean, heck, I can honestly play my favorite mission pretty easily. And honestly, if I had a favorite boss, replaying it just as easy as open up the file and actually find the mission itself. I honestly kind of wish the third mission had sort of like a mission-like feature where you could actually refight a specific boss again. Original actually had it in the 3DS remake, but Dark Moon actually has it down to a T. Heck, if I want to go even further, I am plotting out actually a Dark Moon DLC idea that continues actually main game with clever locations ideas, and as well as the Dark Moon hard mode. Now, sadly, since I'm not good at coding, I'll have to have someone else kind of do all the coding for me. But if someone actually wanted to kind of like figure out an idea, and if anything, help an idea for like work on the Dark Moon hard mode, join the Discord server and kind of, you know, chat with me a little bit about it. Heck, I'm trying to find a way to actually kind of make the game actually harder by actually kind of limiting limitations, like even more so like eliminating EGAT or something. But yeah, unlike the OG game, which has you basically requiring all 50 boosts and actually even flipping it with the hard mode, this Dark Moon hard mode is basically just like kind of, you know, self-creating it and making it kind of like hard for actually players who play for the game normally. Now, it might also give Dark Moon more praise, and if anything, like, if you want to chat about it and actually get some ideas, by all means do so. I've been coming up with a lot of the ideas on my own, and if you have any new ideas we want to try to do, I'm all for them. Alrighty, the results are in. If you managed to watch this entire video, then great. If you were one of the ones who chose to skip to the end, then please go back and check out the previous explanation above, which I'll actually save in a linked comment, so at least you can go ahead and click on which links you want to kind of like check out for explanations. Now, to recap from the very beginning, you know, I will report every first place game with 3 points, second place will get 2 points, and last will only get 1. If we actually tally up the results, last place goes to the original game. Garnering only a measly 21 points, it actually fails in every single category I gave it. The only redeemable quality I can give it is actually the Boolossous fight in that game is a fun one, but sadly it cannot beat the modern games for me personally. Heck, for those who skipped ahead to the end and ignored all the categories, will probably dislike it because they don't respect someone else's opinions. So go back and watch the explanations if you choose to dislike it, and heck, even actually give yourself a comment of why, maybe comment why you might say like my opinion actually is kind of wrong. Like, do it. Do it. You don't have to really give a dislike, but if anything, just at least kind of look at my opinion and kind of respect it. Don't dislike because you can't respect the opinion. That's just weak mind. That's just weak thinking. Second place goes to Luigi Mansion 3 with a whopping 43 points. The reason why this game actually gains a few good points is that there were things that this game did better than the other games. The only reason why they originally didn't get the 20-point score was because of Boolossous himself. Luigi Mansion 3 has the worst Boolossous fight in particular. Other than that, if you skipped over the entire video, you'll check the explanation and understand why. Now, the moment you're waiting for is basically kind of the obvious. The objectively the best Luigi's Mansion game of all time is, in fact, Luigi's Mansion Dark Moon. Now, I can definitely hear the Dark Moon fans cheering and the OG fans, you know, crying out and asking for a recount, but Dark Moon has a personal praise to me in my heart. probably is also one of my favorite 3D games of all time, and even part of my own top 10 games of all time. Which is why it's also kind of rivals some of the even actually better games, which I've also played, which I won't reveal. Darkmoon does so much right for a Luigi's Mansion game, and I honestly kind of find the game to be find I wish other Luigi's Mansion games would be kind of just like the original. I mean, just like Darkmoon. There needs to be more Luigi's Mansion games kind of like Darkmoon, what they've done. Sure, the mission structure was kind of one thing and probably could have been fixed, but I think, in my opinion, what Darkmoon did in particular was so different, which is why it's so great. Now, actually, watch the entire video why I've actually give Darkmoon a lot of praise. There's never anything I really can give it, and heck, none of the times actually at last place. Even actually the Boolossous part where I originally thought was actually going to go and give it a last place, but I changed my mind after like thinking about the fight as a whole, and it actually kind of gained more praise for me. And please check out all the games in particular, because, like, if anything, you need to play all 3 games with an open mind, which is why actually when I play them all, I was able to kind of enjoy them all just equally. If I was playing them all separately, and without actually worrying about actually kind of rating them against each other, all 3 games actually are great. I mean, heck, I have my own dislikes of games I don't actually play or I won't really care about. I mean, if you want to think about it, I played Resident Evil 4, and a game I never actually wanted to play, and never really found myself actually want to go back to playing at all, but I'm actually kind of glad I beat it and ended it all. Playing the game to the end, and it's only taken a full day to beat the game normally. So, if anything, the amount of time you have to play is all 3 games in particular, almost in a sense like a weekend. You could probably spend 7 hours playing the original game, about 8 hours kind of beating Darkmoon, and even more so, even like 8 hours again to beat Luigi's Mansion 3. So literally, an entire weekend you could probably beat all 3 games, which is pretty easy. Not even actually trying to 100% the games. Now, I hope next level games definitely kind of does something different to kind of make Luigi's Mansion 4 stand out. If the game does end up releasing, I'll definitely see how that game stands compared to the trilogy. Thank you all for watching. Please like the video, and if you haven't subscribed to me already, please subscribe. I hope everyone has a happy Halloween, and I hope you guys enjoy watching my Luigi's Mansion playlist on my YouTube channel. Have a happy Halloween!